If you're really into Glocks, you may know that we might be on the verge of a Glock Generation 6 announcement. There was a gentleman on the Glock Talk forum, and this gentleman has a website, and on that website he has a tool where he actually can get and analyze some of the raw data from the Glock website, and he can build out a master list of every model that is on the Glock website, both current and discontinued. And he normally does this so that he can build a master list of all of the pistols that are available as prizes for the Glock Sports Shooting Foundation, which are essentially the Glock competitions. So a couple days ago, his tool had actually queried the Glock website and found that they had added Generation 6 models to their list. They weren't available as prizes yet. And they also added V models, which I'll talk about V models here in a different video. As a side note, I tried pulling this website up while I was editing the video to get some screenshots, but it seems that the website 404s now. Sometimes when you leak information like this from companies, this opens you up for legal action. So it makes sense that he may want to hide this part of his website. The screenshots I showed earlier were the only screenshots I could find on the Glock Talk forum of someone that had screenshot of the website before it 404'd. Also, it looks like his thread on the Glock Talk forum, which was under the GSSF forum section, it was actually removed or locked. I can't seem to find it anymore. So either he got some kind of cease and desist or was being proactive. So we're probably a couple months away from Glock announcing Generation 6 officially. It'll probably be at SHOT Show that we get some more information on it in January or something like that. And it'll probably be a few months after that until they start hitting the shelves and normal people will be able to buy them. But of course, they'll probably be sold out. So I think it's probably fun to speculate what Generation 6 will be. But I think with Generation 5 and some of the clues that they've been dropping and how everything in Generation 5 has been pushing more towards modularity and configurability in terms of different slide and barrel lengths and different grip frame lengths and that sort of thing, there are 3 pistols in my mind that give us a pretty good idea of some of the features you're going to see on Gen 6, or at least one of the major features. And I've actually been holding one of those pistols the entire time. This is the Glock 17L Generation 5. I think this is the newest model that Glock has come out with, even newer than the Glock 49. And it was discontinued very shortly after it came out. I think this is one of the shortest lived Glock models out there. And it has a feature that I think is pretty significant. Now, this pistol is essentially a standard Glock 17 frame and recoil spring assembly, so I could put a Glock 17 slide and upper assembly onto this frame and it would run just fine. The interesting thing about this pistol is actually in the slide. So let me take the slide off. So as we can see on the slide, just like the Glock 34s, it has this little protrusion that comes down and back so that you can use a standard Glock 17 recoil spring assembly and a standard Glock 17 length frame. Where the Glock 17L Gen 5 differs is that this little protrusion here is actually a separate insert. So I can click that out and you can actually remove it completely from the slide. There are 2 things that come to mind with this pistol. Number 1 is going to be manufacturing cost. This is probably cheaper for Glock to make because I believe they use bar stock. So that means the bar stock blanks they use only have to be as tall as this portion right here. They can machine the whole slide out of that. When you add this little protrusion to the front of the slide, the bar stock blank that they use has to be this tall and extend all the way to the rear. So that means pretty much all of the material from here all the way back becomes waste material. And considering this piece here is made out of plastic, once Glock makes the mold for this, they essentially can produce this for pennies on the dollar. Now, the other cool thing about this being a removable insert is that if we were to make this slightly longer, theoretically, we could put this on a Glock 19. If we were to make it even longer, we could actually put this on a Glock 26 frame. And that's because of the changes made to the second gun I want to check out. And that second gun is the Glock 17, the standard Glock 17. And the reason why this is significant is because when Glock moved to the Generation 5, they actually changed the geometry of the barrel in the rear. So this rear portion here is actually the same as a Glock 19 barrel. So normally, on a Generation 1 through Generation 4 gun, you can't put a Glock 17 barrel into a Glock 19 slide and Glock 19 frame. They just don't interchange like that. When they went to the Gen 5, they made them interchangeable. So you could stick this barrel into a Glock 19 slide and Glock 19 frame. It would stick out the end of the slide a little bit, but it would lock up and function fine. Theoretically, you could put that 17L Gen 5 barrel into a Glock 19 slide and Glock 19 frame because they changed the geometry of the barrel here where it locks up in the rear. So that was a significant change with the 17 Gen 5. The last pistol to look at is the Glock 47. Externally, from a user standpoint, this gun is pretty much identical to a Glock 17, but internally, you can see that they've shortened the frame here. As you can see on the 47, the frame is actually the same length as a Glock 19, and what they've done is they've put a protrusion on the bottom of the slide to go far enough back to meet the Glock 19 recoil spring assembly. Very similar to the way that the Glock 17L and the Glock 34 don't use their own frame. They just have a protrusion that sits far enough back so you can use a standard 17 recoil spring assembly. The Glock 47 does the exact same thing. And so because of that, you can take a Glock 47 and a Glock 19 and you can configure it in 4 different ways. You can have a long upper with a long frame, essentially a 17. You can have a short slide with a short frame, essentially a Glock 19. You could have a long slide with a short frame, which is a Glock 19L or a Glock 49. And then you can also have the Glock 19 length upper with the longer size frame, which is essentially a Glock 45. Now going back to the 17L, you can see I've pushed that insert slightly back, and I can actually put the Glock 19 recoil spring assembly in this slide, and I can actually run it onto the 47 frame. Now I have no idea if this would cycle or work well at all. Now if I were to make some kind of insert to stop this from clicking forward when I actually rack the gun, and I can kind of rack the gun by putting my finger here and kind of racking it off that dust cover, but you could see how essentially I could have a Glock 47 frame and I could put a Glock 19 slide and upper on here. I could put a Glock 17 length slide and upper on here. I could put a Glock 34 length slide and upper on here. I could put a 17L length slide and upper on here if I had the inserts and if I had the proper frame for it. So I think this is all pretty interesting from a thought experiment standpoint. I think Glock has kind of telegraphed what they're going to do with Generation 6 through the Generation 5 guns, with them changing the Glock 17 barrel to actually be more of a Glock 19 in the rear, and then also having the Glock 17L's removable, interchangeable little piece here on the slide that in a Gen 6 gun you'd be able to configure probably any length slide on any length frame that you want using something like that. And then I also think the Glock 47, how they've made that pistol essentially to interchange into different configurations with the Glock 19. I think that presents a pretty good idea of what we're going to see with Generation 6. I don't think that we're going to see like a removable fire control unit like some people have speculated. That would be cool, I guess, but it would also probably significantly complicate the detailed disassembly process of these pistols. And for Glocks, that's one of the biggest selling points for them in my mind, is how easy they are to detail strip, how easy they are to work on. And the other thing is that just seems a little bit too revolutionary or too big of a change for Glock. Glock is not a company that likes to change a whole lot when they do change things. And that is, for better or for worse, some people give them a lot of criticism for that. For me personally, I think the Glock Generation 3 guns and earlier were pretty much as good as it was ever going to get. So personally, I really don't care as long as they don't discontinue the Glock Generation 3, which I don't think they will, because I believe a lot of their military contracts, especially their Austrian military contracts, I believe the Austrian here still uses Generation 3 Glock 17s. I guess they're called P80s over there though. So I pretty much think that's what Generation 6 is going to be. I would be excited to get my hands on one as soon as they come out. I don't know if you guys knew this about me, but I have become a very big Glock appreciator in the last year. I used to just kind of generally like them. Then I bought my first Glock probably a little bit over a year ago. And then I started shooting a lot of GSSF matches, and I've come to really like Glocks, and I shoot them very well. And I don't think there are very many pistols on the market that are better than just a stock Glock 17. And no, I don't think stock Glock triggers suck by any means. I think a lot of people out there just suck at shooting. So anyways, that's been my speculation on Glock Generation 6. Thank you all for watching. Thank you especially to my channel members and my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel directly. You too can become a channel member or a Patreon supporter using the relevant links in the description below or on screen right now. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.